You guys, Trimark Properties is one of Gainesville's premier developers of boutique multifamily, office, research, medical, retail, and restaurant space. They also specialize in historic renovation, completing over 70 historic renovations in the immediate area. Today, John Fleming and his business partner, Phil Wagner of Trimark Properties, joins us for the episode. Enjoy. You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. We're gonna go in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa! I am your host, Collin Austin, and today's sponsors, you guys, are the Best Restoration. You guys, we all know that due to the impact of COVID-19, that deeply cleaned and highly sanitized businesses are the new norm. You know your customers are going to want to walk into a business they know is safe. Make sure you call the Best Restoration, and let them help you keep your business top notch. These guys can handle it all. They can do water extraction and restoration, mold remediation, which they've helped us with in the past, air rug cleaning, air ducts cleaning, carpet cleaning, tile and grout cleaning, carpet repairs. They have carpet protectant services, upholstery cleaning services, fire damage restoration, and so much more. Be sure to give them a shout at 352-505-3321 or visit them at thebestrestoration.com. Jorge, my man, I love you. Thank you for sponsoring this show. Your company's awesome. And if your business has ever bought land, sold property, or negotiated a lease, you know why it's important to have someone in your corner who knows the market and delivers results. That's why you see so many Colliers Gainesville signs all over town. The GNV Commercial Advisory Team of Colliers Gainesville has the most experienced commercial real estate team in the market, along with access to a global network of industry experts. You guys, with one call, you'll know why so many businesses trust them. Learn more by visiting them on the web at colliers.com/Gainesville. I like how I did that one. I kind of crushed those. You guys, today on the show, we have John Fleming and Phil Wagner of Trimark Properties. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so I want to just go ahead, dive right into the story. That's where I like to start, is with the story, because I always get the juicy beginning details. And I'm like, what? That's how that happened? That's how you're this monster of a company now?
Monstrosity of a company.
This monster of a company now. So yeah, I mean, tell me, you guys, either one of you guys can start, but, you know, how did you guys start this company? And how did you guys meet? And tell me all of it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I came here to go to school, University of Florida, and in doing so, I had to put myself through school, and got a job as a maintenance supervisor at a local apartment complex. I had background in construction, and was doing that, and needed some additional funds, as you can imagine, as any college student does from time to time. So I was doing some painting on the side and some landscaping on the side. My roommate at the time was helping me, and he just happened to know this dude down at Fort Myers that wanted to come up to go to the University of Florida, and we needed a little help because we were really, really busy. I was probably working 120 hours a week, so he introduced me to Phil. Phil came up, I think I came in 85, you came in 87.
Yeah.
So probably the first day he was here, we were working a job somewhere together, and it kind of just spiraled from there. And we can keep going. I'm sure my version, his version will be a little different. But that's how we met, at least.
Yeah. I remember the first house we painted was over by Arlington Square, a big Victorian house, and we thought we were going to do it in 2 days, and it took us about a week.
Yeah. So it's how it started, at least. We worked our way through school, both of us. And that painting company probably paid for a lot of getting through school, but I continued to be a maintenance supervisor. Phil finished up his degree sometime later and got into property management. I was already in it in a different side of the house, so he went to work for a local big real estate firm. And I'll let him tell the rest of that one. So
yeah, I right out of school, I got a job with Collier companies. Back then it was called College Park Properties, then became Paradigm Properties, and just right place, right time. Met Nathan Collier, got a job, started off, doing leasing, a little bit of management, and he bought a bunch of property real fast. A lot of people quit, and the next thing you know, I was running the whole place. So it was cool. I got real lucky. About a year in, our current partners had Trimark, but they only owned one property, and it was called the Courtyards. And they contacted Nathan and needed some advice because they had just bought their first property, didn't know really what they were doing. And they contacted Nathan. Nathan referred him to me. He just wasn't in the consulting gig at that time. So I put together a little team. We did some consulting. They needed a maintenance guy, maintenance supervisor, and he was not working, water skiing every day, and waiting for another job to call. And I'm like, man, I got a gig for you. Let's talk to these people. And he's like, nah, they won't pay me enough. And I'm like, well, I mean, you don't even know, just go interview. And he's like, man, they're never going to pay me enough. So he went and interviewed, and he threw out some big number. I don't know what it was back then, but it was a big number. And they bit, and they said, yeah, I definitely want you. And he went to work for him. I couldn't believe it either. I was like, man, I can't even believe that happened. And
I think it's the only time I ever went in cocky about a job, and I just I had been working so much, and I just got burned out, and so I was water skiing and playing golf, and I was just living the life.
Are you a good water skier?
I was decent back then. I was decent.
I grew up on the water too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I love it. But it didn't. Does it really matter? You're on the water, right?
That's right.
It matters if you're any good or not. So, but I was having a great time. So I went in and did tell them, a number at the time. Now it seems like pittance, but at the time it was a pretty big number. I thought, yeah, good, they'll say no, and then I can go back to doing my thing. And unfortunately, they didn't, or fortunately, they didn't. So
cool.
It turned out. So anyway, I started Trimark and started doing maintenance there. Shortly thereafter, got promoted to property manager, and then a couple years later was a partner. And one of the things is funny through the years, Phil and I worked together in college, out of college, continued doing both landscaping and painting and all this other stuff, kind of making money on the side. And then both of our jobs got kind of busy, right? And we're kind of really concentrating on them, but we're still having lunch on Fridays and still hanging out. And I'm learning a lot from him. He's learning a lot from me. But one of the weirdest things that I can remember, we're touring a property of his at the time, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, how the hell are they getting this much money for this property? I'm like, they get more rent than we do, and I know our quality. So my background is construction, right? So I know the quality of our product is far superior. I'm like, but they're just tagging us, man. They're all the time. They're beating us to the on the rates and stuff. And I'm like, I just got to file that back in my head. And a couple of years later, I figured, okay, we're not going to be able to beat them, so why don't I just go after him, and I just go get Phil. And if Phil can put together the sales team to do what they do over there, and I can put together the product, it may make a good combination, and it did. So that's kind of where we started.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when did things really start to build and compound? I mean, well, real quick, let me ask this: when you were with, when you started taking over some of the stuff with Collier, how big was that organization? Because they're a pretty large company.
All right. So when I started, they owned literally College Park, and that was it.
Okay.
So they were
in their
700 units, and I guess they're somewhere over 10,000 now, close to it. So. Yeah, I mean, when I left there, I left in 2004. I left right when my first son was born. That was a good transition period for me. And I think we were up to almost 5,000 units at that time. So.
Okay. It feels like your story is very organic. Like things just kind of happened, fell in the right place at the right time. I mean, is that true, or is it? Was there a lot of intentional? Okay, now you're sitting down, and now we're doing X, now we're doing Y, now we're doing Z.
I think it's a combination, man. It's it's not pure luck, right? Hell, I was working 120 hours a week, right? So someone's going to notice that the work ethic, but and there's he and I. we painted, and a lot of times we were painting because I was working a job and he was working a job. So we may show up at we painted I don't know what it's called now, Bank of America building downtown. Ken McGurn owned it at the time. We would show up when everybody else was leaving. All the construction guys are leaving, and we're showing up at like 6 o'clock in the evening. We'd paint until like 4 in the morning. So it's only he and I in there. So we're talking the whole time about stuff. So you're kind of planning a little bit, right? You kind of figure out, all right, we know we can't do this forever, right? We got to do something different.
You want to go and develop all these neighborhoods now?
Why not? Yeah,
I mean, when did those conversations start to like really happen? I mean, here you are painting walls together, and then now it's like,
when we were painting walls.
Yeah, we painted for Nathan.
We would go into a place
for
and be
Ken.
like,
I mean, we did a lot of work for big boy developers in town, so we saw what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And he and I actually had a great conversation with Ken once, and we were talking about what we might do, and he's like, "Well, you need to learn your own mistakes." I'm like, "Hell no!" I'm like, "I've watched you make mistakes. I'm not making those mistakes. I'll make my own." And not that he makes a ton of mistakes, but everybody does. And I'm like, "No, I can learn from you just as well as learn from myself." So, those conversations happened at 3 a.m. or and during turnover when you're painting for 3 days straight, that kind of stuff. So
painting was probably the most fun we had, because we'd sit there and just talk about stuff because you're just painting. It's either that or listen to a radio. So we just talk and talk and talk, and every time it was like, man, if we own this, we do this. If we own this, we do this. If we own this, we do this. And we finally got to put it into play.
Yeah.
So when did you really start to feel it, or like when did it really start to, compound and get traction and start gaining more and more team members? Like, I mean, how long was it? It was 2 of you guys for a while, right? And then a bunch of subs, or what?
So I was at Trimark, and we were a lot smaller company then. And we just had renovated some older apartment complexes. We had the courtyards and bought a few more existing properties. And in 2002, or just before, probably in 2001, maybe 2000, we decided that we'd take a chance and build something new. And we hadn't done that. And I reached out to Phil. It was funny. I reached out. I said, "Hey, man, who'd you use for architect? I didn't know who to use here in town." And they had just got done building Hidden Lake. And I said, all right, well, we'll just use the same crew, right? So I got the architect, and I got the GC, I got everybody the same, and kind of designed the property so close. It was a lot smaller version, but it was so close that we didn't have any pictures or anything back then to put on. So I asked Phil, could I go up and take some pictures of Hidden Lake inside, because it's going to be similar. And he said, yeah. So we used those. We actually used Hidden Lake photos for the first one. But when we built that was in 2002. Nothing had been built in University Heights, which is kind of the area we focus in on, since 1969, 1970, when the Courtyards was built, which we owned. And we weren't sure what would happen, right? We're building this little 24-unit complex, a little nicer than, or as nice as what's being built, but in an area that really was kind of like the old student ghetto. It was kind of a rundown area, but it was really close. It was like a block to Norman Hall, right? You're right there. So we gave it a shot, and it did really, really well. We ended up getting about 30% more than Phil was getting at Hidden Lake, and we didn't have a pool, we didn't have a clubhouse, we didn't have a big parking lot, we didn't have any of that stuff. And that's kind of when it clicked for me. I was like, damn, if this worked on this scale, let's see what it'll do again and again. And we just, every year, we just started popping them out. And it was nice because once we got Phil on board, it was a partnership, right? It's like, hey, you get as much rent as you can, and I'm just going to keep jacking these things up. Not only the amount of them, but we're going to take them to new levels that we've never taken them before. So while at Royal Palms we built, and then 10 years later we had our groundbreaking right across the street at Solaria, and it was night and day. I mean, 10 years, and especially when you're old like he and I, doesn't seem that long, but the difference between that property and Solaria, which is just, it's all granite. It's beautiful, beautiful property inside. It's just crazy. And that's, just, we could step up every time because he could get the rents.
How many properties do you guys have now?
I have no idea. I don't know. You know how many? Dude, that's a chest beating exercise, right? That's like, I have 1,000 units. Who cares, man? We don't have any empty. That's what I care
Yeah.
about. Right?
Okay.
So as long as on the residential side, on the commercial side, we have a few because we're just kind of getting into that now, hard and heavy. But on the residential side, we're good.
How many walls have you painted in your life?
Oh my god. Interior,
With some
exterior.
stuff that probably burned some brain cells up.
Yeah.
Do you still ever pick up a brush and paint a wall once in a while?
I do. I actually have. I patched some cracks and some plaster this weekend, and I've got to go home sometime this weekend and paint a few walls.
Yeah. Oh man.
I painted last night.
Did you?
Yeah, painted a deck at my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we had Reed Fogler on the show.
Yeah, I saw.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, we did see it. So I have to
Oh yeah,
say,
he had great things to say about you guys.
oh,
but,
no,
like,
Reed's great, man. I will say, Reed remembers like us, and his wife remembers a little different. I'd go with the wife, man. I think.
yeah.
I think she
Oh,
remembers
okay,
a
so
little better.
his story wasn't quite
It's
accurate.
Reed's
from the-
story. He's a great
Reed's
storyteller.
version,
He's
yeah.
a great storyteller.
That's great. The you know, like let's talk about Gainesville because you guys are really a company who is very invested into the community. Obviously, what do you like? What's Gainesville's biggest challenge in your opinion right now?
What's our biggest challenge? Getting everyone-
Growth management, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, getting everybody to. For me, you know, I deal with the city a lot. All of our properties are in the city, real close to the university. I think right now is just a lack of focus. I mean, it's just there's so many. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it seems like everybody's got their own issue, and there's just so many out there that you can never really dive into them deep and fix something.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's like everybody's priorities are different.
everybody's
so it's
priorities
like-
are different. Yeah, yeah. It's
So
just
how
tough.
would you prioritize the issues or the challenges? Is
So-
there anything that would be at the top of your list?
Yeah, for us, because we're developers, there'd be a lot of things on the top of the list, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing on top of the list. I have no idea what the top priority should be in the city of Gainesville at the moment, other than for us, it's it's been the same for a long time. Is how do we connect the front door of University of Florida to downtown? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where we focus. So
Well, that corridor is like
getting better.
Yeah, it's
Getting
looking
better.
really, really awesome.
Yeah,
You guys just
yeah.
put that food park over there.
Yeah, Midpoint's up and running.
Yeah,
and
which
it's
looks
doing really
great.
well. Thank you.
How's it
thank
doing
you.
so far?
It's doing awesome. It's doing awesome. You had lunch there today, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. So we have. I went down there Friday and had lunch with one of our landscape architects, and I think maybe 3/4 of the people there were our employees. So of various companies. So it was pretty cool.
What's the one thing that like gets under your skin about the community? You know, whether it's from a city standpoint or, I mean, maybe just some of those issues. I mean, because you know, I don't know if you were there when I gave this talk, but like one of the things that we had a big problem with early on was like our zoning.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I was like, dude, like I kept, you know, I want to say it was like 2013. I stood up in front of the mayor and the city commission. I gave this like this passionate speech, you know, it was
Did you get it?
put on by the Chamber of Commerce. What's that?
Did you get what you needed?
I mean, it was really, I felt like it was really just bringing awareness to some of the issues, because one of the things I was very passionately talking about, I was like, look, like, you know, businesses like mine are going to pick up and leave.
Right.
Like, because I can go somewhere else and not have to deal with these issues.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of it has zoning. And the point that I was really making at that time was there was that like Advanced Auto Parts next to the cash and carry over there on like 34th
Right.
and 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how is that any different than what we're doing? You know, because they wanted us to be zoned business automotive.
Right.
And like a lot of the zoning has changed. I want to give credit where credit's due. Like it has evolved and it has changed, and that's great. But you know, we're business automotive zone. I'm like, well, you know, we really don't have a need for a 10,000 square foot building with 500 parking spaces because I'm not selling cars.
right.
I'm selling scooters, and I wanted to be in like a retail strip center.
Sure.
You know, it's like
Sure.
there's no fuel in them when they're sitting in the showroom. It's got a little bit of oil, but it's all sealed, you know. And my point very much was like, well, Advanced Auto Parts will allow you to bring your oil
Used oil. Yeah,
from
right.
where you did the oil change at your house.
Yeah.
to them. They'll go out to the parking lot and change your battery.
I've watched people drop gas tanks in their parking lot, right?
So like that was really like the point that I was making at that time, and I am glad that a lot of it has changed and evolved, and luckily this was grandfathered in as business automotive when we took over. So like, that worked out perfectly for us. But is there anything like that's just been kind of like that needle in the side for you guys?
I think for me it's just the time it takes. I remember it much like you, right? The first time I went to a first step meeting, which is kind of where you start for a development, scared the hell out of me, man. I mean, they're coming at me with all these rules and regulations, and I hadn't done any of that, so it was quite intimidating. I'll say it gets better, and now we can go in and run them basically because we know a lot of the code and have dealt with it through the years. But some years ago, the city really worked on their customer service front. And I think maybe it was probably one of the best things the city had done, because somebody coming in and asking for something, right? I want to do a car wash here. I want to put a medical office there. I want to open this restaurant. A lot of times back in the day, they were met with regulators, right? People it was almost easier to say no than it was to say, let's see how we can do this.
Right.
That changed a lot in 07, 08, 09. Even past that, because of, we went through that big recession, and everybody had to kind of get on board, and it was really nice. And we still see it, while we've come back out of that, we still see remnants of that with some of the city folk and city in general, right? That may be Public Works, it may be GRU, whoever we're dealing with, but that leftover customer service has been good. And through the years, I mean, we know all these people, right? So now, 20 some odd years later, he and I played basketball with half of them. So, now we don't play basketball anymore. So, who
wins, you guys or them?
Yeah, we don't play. They would win. I don't know if any of us could actually get on the court anymore. But it's just, if we could figure out how to make everything a little more customer friendly, right? And it doesn't mean you say yes to everything, because some things aren't appropriate, right? And certain things, but if it makes sense, let's figure out how to do it. And that's a lot of times that's what we end up doing. I mean, it's a Midpoint Park's a great one. That's not allowed by code. It wasn't. We had to go before the city and say, hey, this is what we want to do. It was a great idea. It just isn't allowed by the code. So now they've got to, and it takes time. They've got to fix it.
How much time did it take?
That probably took 6 months or so. It was pretty quick. I mean, they wanted it. Right? It was a great idea. All the city commissioners behind it, so it helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, like, I don't know. It's funny when, I see just some of the conversations that are happening, specifically like on social media and this kind of thing, where it's like, Gainesville's starting to lose its charm because, the high-rise buildings, and now, knocking down the Swamp Restaurant, which I want to talk about the replica in a second, right? But like, the Swamp Restaurant and the charm and the character and these words that were really being used to describe Gainesville, and obviously, like, there's these big high rises coming into these spaces now. I mean, like, what do you say to those people, like, or what's your thoughts? Like, do you agree that it is causing Gainesville to lose some of its charm, and so that's why you want to make a replica like the Swamp Restaurant? Like, what is your perspective on those things?
I think we would say we agree that it's losing some of the charm, but it was, the wheels were starting to turn on this probably when both of us broke into the industry. There's a lot of zoning changes back in the mid 90s that were geared toward, basically keeping from so much urban sprawl and stuff moving west. The big thing back then was they didn't want to see development moving so far west. So they wanted to increase zoning downtown. And nobody was, talking about the early story, back in 2001, we were pioneers to be doing developments a block from campus.
Right.
That was considered crazy. And think about that today. So that was put in place to increase the number of bodies you could put walking distance to campus. The thought was, you eliminate vehicles, they'd bring bicycles. That never materialized. The bicycle thing was never really going to happen. Now it's scooters.
Scooters happen.
But they have scooters and they still have cars. So they definitely, the parking's crazy. But the zoning's here. I mean, in our neighborhood, you can build 100 units an acre, more.
125.
Yeah, more with bonus points.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a parking space. Not a single one. And we're seeing it now. I mean,
By
all
code.
this stuff,
By code. By market, it's a different story.
You should have parking spaces, but you don't have to. And that was all put in place in the mid '90s. So
would anybody actually rent a place without parking?
When they talk about reaping what you sow, this is what it is. I mean, this is this was put in place in the mid '90s, and that's what we're getting.
But I don't want to make it sound like that's a horrible thing.
No, it's a great thing.
There's a balance, right? So we're known for historic renovations, right? We've probably done 60, 70 units through the years, houses and various things, and they turn out beautiful. And so I'm very much an advocate. We're very much advocates for trying to save what you can save. But then there are places that just it's not worth saving, or it's a blank piece of land, or whatever the case may be, that needs to have something new. And it's kind of the same way with the historic stuff of Gainesville, right? People, I always liken it to pregnancy with a woman, right? So, and I can speak a little bit to that since we have 4 children. That is obviously a very difficult physical thing to go through. If you could remember all of that in its detail, you probably would never have another child, right? But God gives you the ability to kind of see the end result and realize, okay, this is awesome. We may have another one, right? So it's kind of the same with Gainesville in that some people remember these cute little quaint parts of Gainesville that really aren't or weren't so cute and quaint, but they just kind of, it's how they want to remember it. And especially people from out of town that you can't take this down. They haven't been to Gainesville in 3 years, right? So you can't take Burrito Brothers down. Oh my gosh, no, right? And okay, when's the last time we were there? Oh yeah, I was, when I left school in '86, I was, okay. Then really you're trying, I think you told me this, you're trying to preserve your memory in Gainesville has nothing to do with what Gainesville is at the moment. So it's a balance. I think it is.
Yeah. Definitely.
So talk to me about the replica of the small restaurant.
Not a replica, man. It's just.
Is it off based on the original blueprint?
Yeah,
100%.
It's based off the original blueprint. It'll be a mirror image because of where it's going. So the entrance will flip one side or the other. We're gonna take all the charm that was the swamp, make it look pretty much the same. We're gonna fix a few things just because that building was put in, and they obviously was already there because it was rebuilt from when Chaucer's burnt down. So they had a few quirks that we needed to kind of fix. So the bathrooms for the swamp are real close to where everybody comes out of the kitchen and right by the bar. So it got kind of congested right there. So we've moved that. We've got an elevator putting in and things of that nature. But it'll feel much like the swamp.
Okay, so how long will it take for that project to come to completion?
It's supposed to break ground in June, July, and it's supposed to be open in June. So 21, 22. So 22 it'll be open.
Dude, that's
soft opening. I've promised Ryan, the owner, that we would get it to him in time to have a soft opening so that his first day open wasn't, first game day. So that would be a difficult break in
I'm sure.
of staff and everybody else. So.
What about COVID-19 impact? Did it have any on you guys? With a lot of the,
we navigated it pretty well. We've got everything was leased, so we were good. A lot of kids stayed. Parents don't really want their kids home once they leave, and kids don't really want to go home once they leave. So once they figured out they had the option to be in Gainesville, they pretty much came back, and we came up with some unique ways to help people who were affected. Anybody that was financially affected, we created an affidavit they could fill out, and if they were financially affected, we work on their rent payments over a longer period of time than the lease, and then we had some waivers and stuff for late fees for other people that were affected. So I said, all in all, we did really well.
Yeah, I think so. Commercial-wise, we had a few that, with restaurants and stuff like that we knew they were hurting. I mean, there's no doubt they were hurting. So we worked on restructuring their lease and stuff. But I think overall we came through it pretty good.
In terms of your pie chart of, properties that you manage and control, how much of it is student housing versus commercial business type stuff versus
50-50 at the moment?
Yeah,
really?
I think probably 55-60 residential. Probably.
Yeah, a little more residential.
Yeah, a little more.
Got a lot of land sitting in the bank.
Yeah.
So that's what we have most of.
Okay. So. Is there a project that you guys are the most proud of of all these years? The one that sticks out the the most that you absolutely love more than any of them?
Oh man, that's hard. There's a bunch of them that I love.
For me, it's Savion. It's just so different than everything else we did. So yeah, I think
Is it complex?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's over by 6. It overlooks the pond.
Okay.
It's got a fountain.
Yeah.
Very contemporary. Very cool project.
Yeah, I walk them. I love some of the historic stuff that we've done where we've infilled, and there's little pocket parks and courtyards all around. Midpoint, to me, is just really cool. And we just did that, but maybe that's why it's just fresh. But it was just something that somebody else hadn't thought of yet, right? So at least around here. So and it serves a big need, right? So we were having a hard time. I mean, trying to convince a restaurateur to go into that area when there's no other. What is there? Subway and Reggae Shack, but they're up on University. But there's nothing in the heart of University Heights. So. Trying to convince somebody was tough. So doing the way we did it and getting those things open, I think it'll lead to a lot more. So.
Cool. I'm excited to see that area continue to develop. It's a good connection between downtown and UF. What's the, all right, so in all your years in business,
It's a lot.
what's the biggest horror story that you can remember?
Oh, I know mine. You go ahead, man.
I got to think about mine.
That was
You
like,
do?
that
Yeah,
was-
if you know yours, go ahead.
Oh, dude, we owned a property. We decided, much like a lot of people do, they decide to, we're not doing enough here, so let's branch out. If we can do it here, we can go elsewhere, right? So we buy a property. It's 210 units across from FSU, right? So I'm a UF grad, so that already kind of burned me a little bit. But all right, we'll go up there. And this is an older complex, and it was rough. It was they were leasing them by the hour and by the night and things of that nature. So we had a lot of changing to do. So we got it all squared away, and it took us about a year and a half, and really started seeing some huge improvements in the property. And it had a flooding issue. And it rained and it flooded, and we got carpets wet in like 20 units, right? So we're in there taking carpets out, putting them in, trying to figure out what's going on. And so we're going through that, and maybe 2-3 more times it does this, and we finally figure out that the FEMA maps are wrong. They're off about 5 vertical feet, which is a lot when the map is wrong. But about the time we figured this out, we took a major flood up there, and I got a call midnight on some night, and it said they had flooded. By the time I got there at maybe 3 a.m., they had put 36 inches of water in 55 units. It just flooded, and every one of those units was full. Everybody's stuff was gone. The kids they're throwing stuff up on their bed because they're trying to save it, and then the bed floats. They throw it on top of the refrigerator, and the refrigerator tips over because it's floating. We lost the office, we lost the maintenance shop, everything. So it was just hell for 4 or 5 months.
If this happens to you, call our friends at the Best Restoration.
There you go. Give them a call. I wish I could have at the time. It was bad. It was, and Tallahassee had flooded during that time. A lot of complexes went through the same thing. It was a really bad storm system there. So that was gotta be. I had to live in Tallahassee. That's how Woodbury Row and Reed Fogler got.
Oh, because you were out of town.
Yeah. So Reed told that story about Mr. Woodbury and I talking, and he came up. Well, Mr. Woodbury got ready to sell at about the same time he called me, and I'm in Tallahassee stuck for 4 months and can't deal with it. And Reed got that property. So
did you see that wink when he went up to Mr. Woodbury? He's like, "Hi,
yeah,
nice
I don't
to
know
meet
if
you."
I
And he's
remember,
like,
but I do remember him coming up. And I thought, this is odd. He knows him. So all right, well, but hey, it's all right.
So they
It
weren't
all
fooling
works.
you. You knew they knew each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was funny. He's like telling us that. I was just like laughing. For anybody who's like wants to know what I'm talking about, it was in Reed Fogler's episode. It's episode 138 at the 28-minute mark. He's telling that story of Woodbury Row. And,
Well, that's the one we lost because we were dealing with a flood in Tallahassee. So worked out okay.
I don't have anything that lasted nearly 4 months. Mine was like a move-in day flood a couple years ago at Windsor Hall, and I got called at like 4 in the morning. And I mean, water was. Some girl had tried to put in a over the toilet cabinet and hit the water valve and broke it off.
Just sheared it off.
There was no stopping the water. And she's trying to bucket it into the tub and have it drain out. And she'd put towels underneath the door and trying to keep it from going out in the hall. And finally, they wouldn't open the door. They couldn't open the door. And we finally you got to take those towels out. And I mean, it flooded the entire floor as soon as she did it. And I mean, this is in the heat, like you were talking about August 24th. Well, this is the same for us. I mean, the next day we got to move in, and they just moved into Windsor Hall, all freshmen. You parents, transitioning kids into college is a very emotional time. So of course, I got parents in the building losing their mind at 4 a.m, and I'm trying to get everybody calm, and it was crazy. It took. I think we got it mitigated and back to normal in about 2 weeks. So, but I got nothing to top 4 months.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is pretty recent. How long ago was that?
That's probably 2-3. Well, we sold it. We sold it a year ago. It's probably longer ago than I think, but I remember it like it was yesterday. It's probably 4 years ago.
Is there a time where you will ever not have to deal with headaches like that?
We don't have to deal with them much now. I mean, that was bad enough. It was during turn, and one of the differences in our company is we're heavily involved in the turnover process. I mean, I walk probably 50 to 60% of our move-ins personally to make sure they're up to my standards for move-in. So you're not going to find that anywhere else in this town where an owner's walking units on a move-in day. So that was what made it crazy is, we'd been doing this for, we call it the Groundhog Day. It's the same thing every day, every damn day. It's the same. You just can't, you're counting down the days.
4 weeks, man. You lose track of, you don't know what day it is.
At least 12 hours every day.
I know.
On top, people don't realize, like, if you don't have a day off, you don't know what day it is, right? Because you can't mark it.
For sure.
So, I mean, you're going along, like, what day is it? Sunday? No, it's Wednesday. Really? Wednesday?
The scooter dealership's the same way, man. I mean, we and I've actually just gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm not gonna kill myself because we would do 13 days straight. And I'm just like, dude, same thing. Couldn't remember what day we were on. Couldn't remember. Like, I mean, it was
you don't eat.
We run about 30 days straight.
So
it's every year.
The only way we actually got to eat was like during those days we would actually hire a catering company to come out and set up lunch out there in the hallway right there. And that way it was just lunch was already there. We didn't have to worry about anything and just kind of eat. And like, I mean, I have pictures of like, my assistant at one point, like literally hand feeding like a banana to one of our team members, like while she's like typing, working, you see like a bite. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why are we doing But I mean, the reason I ask is like, I don't know, I'm starting to feel sometimes like being an absentee type business owner is just like a dream that's not even real.
Yeah, I don't think it'll work for me. So.
I can't.
I mean, it's great if you can do it, right?
Yeah,
you put the team together.
Trying to figure out how.
You came to the wrong people.
So no tips,
we don't
huh?
know. Yeah,
we've got tremendously qualified people. A lot of people that've been with us for over 10 years, and we still can't do it. And they can't do it. They're the same as us. They can't not be involved. So
how many team members you guys got?
60.
So we've got 50 at Trimark, 17 at Urban, and another 10 on the architectural firm. So, 70, 80.
All right.
So enough. I think I think you could if you were fine with stable. Right? If you said, hey, I need to make X sales a year, we're not going to push it any further, we're not expanding, then you can kind of put it on coast, right? And maybe certain businesses can do that. For us, it's never been about that. So it's always, we're trying to strive to do something more, and to do that, you got to be involved.
So what is the end game then?
Oh, who knows, man?
Yeah.
I said it earlier, I got to connect UF to downtown.
That's it. That's the goal.
Connect it up.
And even then we won't be done.
No.
I mean,
that's just for now. We'll start over again.
I mean, I don't know about him, but I fish all the time. I fish whenever I want. That's my hobby. Most people think I'm a better fisherman than I'm good at real estate. So, as long as I can do that, I don't really need to spend a whole lot of time retiring.
Yeah. So retirement's not in the plan, so to speak.
Colin's he's headed to the beach, man. I can see it in his eyes.
Well,
man.
you know, it's not that. You know, it's funny because I was talking to a friend about this today, like because some of the stuff happening in my dealership right now, like I'm back on the ground floor again.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of it, you know, like I was in the showroom selling scooters today. Like it's been a long time since I've had to do that. I mean, like I love selling.
Yeah,
I love selling. There's a lot of part about like there's a lot of it that I don't like. Like I don't like doing the actual paperwork part of it. I don't like
I can see that.
It's just like dude. Like I
Most salespeople don't.
I just wish I could just like hand it off to somebody and you know, but but you know the biggest problem that I have with it is that I like my freedom. So I like to be able to do what I want when I want, whenever I want. I don't like this being handcuffed to the sales floor between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's probably my biggest issue with it right now. So so of course like now I'm like, you know, trying to figure out how can I do that? How can I create these systems? And you know, dude, I've been doing this for 17 years. I think I'd have it somewhat figured out by now.
You must have it. You know.
I mean, there's, you know, but there's still, man, and it always changes. And then there's always something else that changes. There's some new technology that changes it, and you got to readjust the entire system. It's, you know, just
we feel you.
How has technology had an impact on y'all's business? Anything stick out?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've. When I started there, we were typing out
leases.
Contracts and leases, and now you know everything's done online. We took a property that we'd pre-leased to about 30% occupied, and then in 2 days, because of just a market trend, we were able to take it from that to full, just because we do online leasing, just because we use DocuSign, you know, and we have good systems and good processes. Like we know our market. We know who we're marketing to. We know that they, you know, how they want to process a lease and how they want to be done fast. Like this particular market just wants to be done fast. And so you got to make it so they're done fast, and it works for us. So, you know, we've got good people who work with it. We've got our own coder. You know, I mean, we've developed our own database system, our own leasing system. Most people buy an off the shelf. I can't tell you the number of people who've called me and said, "Oh yeah, I can't do it the way you guys think I should do it because my system requires X, Y, or Z." And I'm like, then change the system.
Yeah.
You know,
if you're letting around the computer program
system run how the market relates to it, you're out of your mind. You're going to miss everything, and they do. They miss everything.
Yeah. So you created your own. Is this like software you're talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are like, okay, where would you even start with that? I mean, you.
Oh, we don't know.
Yeah,
don't
so
look
we've got
at us
great
like
people. We've got
awesome
great.
People.
You know, our VP of Ops and runs our marketing department too. And she's her. You know, for 10 years, her hobby was SEO.
Okay.
Hobby. Like, she'd go home and do that for us at night because she loved it. She loved it, you know, and I'm like, wow, that's a good hire, you know.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she's been there 17 years and I mean, been doing it, keeping us ahead of the game the whole time.
Yeah. So you gotta use technology, and then you gotta change it up, right? So I've had this conversation this week. You know, what worked when you're at 4 people doesn't necessarily work. It may work great.
Right.
It might have worked great for 6 or 7, but when you hit 10, it's not working so much anymore, right? And that just keeps going. I mean, it isn't, you know, it's 50, you would think, we'll be fine, you know, and then 70 and then just people. It's what you're putting into the system, right? So we own a company that's kind of going through that now, and it's, you know, they're wanting to go out and get more business. I'm like, man, we got to fix the system first, because if you don't fix the system, it doesn't matter how much you put in it, right? You're just going to mess it up worse, right? You got to fix the system itself, and then be willing to change it later if you have to. So
yeah,
we do a lot of that.
How many businesses do you have? Is it just like
a few?
Yeah. Just all organic needs? Like, let's start this now, or what?
actually
painting another wall. What do you think about starting this business?
So a lot of them, that's kind of what we still do. So it's funny. That's exactly how it works. Back then, it was we were painting, right, and we're in the same room or the next room. Now, if you ever go into our corporate offices, his office and my office are next to each other, and they're really a long office. Both of us are at the back of those offices. We have conference tables up front. And so we both sit way to the back of the office. Well, there's a little door that stays open 90% of the time that goes right from my office to his. And I just look like all I got to do is look left and he's right there. So a lot of times ideas just, as long as he's not on the phone, and sometimes when he's on the phone, I'll just be like, dude, what do you think about this? Or he'll do the same thing. So it's still just like we're painting. Now we're banging on computers and doing other things, but it's still coming up with ideas. So I don't know. We run like 25 different companies, but most of them are real estate related. But we've got a few others. We bought a landscape company, I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
More than that.
Maybe it's been lower. So couldn't find one to do our properties the way we wanted them done, right? And we were kind of known for that they look good. So got tired of trying to find somebody that could do it and really keep track of it the way we wanted. So we just screw it, and we just went out and bought a company and developed it ourselves. So it's like he and I are back in college again, because we owned one in college. So now we own one. We don't do the work on that one though. So we don't actually go out and know anything. So.
And we get lucky from time to time. We find people. We had a guy we fished with back in, long time ago, back in 1998, I think, 99.
Keys,
we went fishing with, and he reached out to me 2-3 years ago. And he said, "Hey man, he lived in Mississippi. He went to Ole Miss, he got a master's in biology, I think.
Botany or biology.
He'd worked for Scott's company, for the fertilizer company, for like 12 years. I'd never thought about this guy running a landscaping company. I thought, he's going to be in management somewhere. He reaches out to me. He's like, "Hey man, you ever heard of this company, Urban Greenscapes?" And I'm like, "You're messing with me, right?" And he's like, "No, why?" And I'm like, "I own that." And he's like, I'm like, "And John's my partner." And he's like, "I want to come to work for you guys." I said, "You live in Oxford." He's like, "I got a place in Keystone." And 2 weeks later, he was there, and he and our facilities director run it perfectly, and he's more involved because he loves it.
Oh, yeah.
He goes down and just checks it out. He'll come in his Urban Greenscapes. He does not dress like that every day. He'll come in shorts, an Urban Greenscapes shirt, and I know he's going to go out and walk some Urban Greenscapes properties that day.
Gotta go incognito, man. If I go like this,
somebody
I get stopped a lot.
Ask you questions.
Like undercover boss of your own 25 companies.
Yeah, my people know me, but the students and the parents don't, so we're good. So I can walk around.
Have you sold any of those companies? Or you kept them all?
We haven't sold a company. We've sold a couple properties here and there.
Properties.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think we've sold. Have we sold? We sold Windsor. We sold Windsor Hall. We sold Courtyards. We sold the one we started with.
Ago. Yeah, sold the one we started with.
And that was one of the best moves we ever made. And we sold Windsor.
What, selling it or
selling it? Buying
it too now.
The deal's done when you buy it. Right? That's where the money's made.
The Courtyards purchase and money from the Courtyards paid for a lot of our growth.
Yeah,
so
it did. Yeah, it was a good time. It was
good.
Was it always self-funded, or was it pulling in other partners or anything? No?
Self-funded.
It's amazing. It sounds like a big piece of this puzzle has been being able to keep talented team members. Is there any tips that you have for doing that, recruiting people? That's a hot topic in Gainesville.
It is.
Like, how do you find talent? How do you recruit talent? And how do you keep talent? That is a very hot topic. So, any tips? You said a lot of these players have been with you for over 10 years. Yep. You said, I know you said 17 for one of the ones you're talking about. Yeah. So,
we've got 17 is the longest, I think, besides you.
Oh, yeah, I've been here forever.
So 17, I've been there 16. We got a facilities director that's been there 12 or 13.
12 or 13 at least,
a lot of long-term people. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think we hire. So one thing we don't do is hire specifically for our personalities. We hire for the personality of what the job is, and not necessarily to work great with us. Not that they don't, most of them do, but we don't look for that first. Even in the sales side, and you can relate to this, is we got a lot of different people coming in who want to they want to talk to different kinds of people, and especially in what we do, some people want the mom, the parents specifically. They want the mom away from home, or they want someone like that in the office. So we try to have a little bit of everything in our office from a sales perspective. But I mean, we have a diverse group for sure. We want people who they don't always get along, especially on the sales side, because they're always fighting for that that bonus, that leasing bonus. But yeah, I think it's just hiring people that can do the job, looking for this the specifics of that particular position, and not too much into the personality.
Yeah, and then I will say a lot of it's luck, and I'm sure we don't do it the best as we could. But you said something earlier about being on the sales floor and doing that, you didn't want to dot the I's and cross the T's, right? So that is one thing that we do very well, is that we eliminate a lot of that stuff. So instead of hiring somebody that's kind of a jack of all trades, we hire somebody that's really good at something, right? So we hire salespeople. We don't make them dot I's and cross T's. We got bookkeepers that'll do that because they love to do it. And while they're not introverts and they want to talk to people, they don't want to go sell anything, right? Bookkeeper kind of likes numbers, right? So you give the bookkeeper to finish off the lease or someone like that, and you let the salesperson go and sell another one. So instead of doing the contract, you'd have handed that off to somebody, and you would have gone and sold another scooter, right? So that's kind of how we do everything in the company. So there's nobody that's a jack of all trades other than me, and that just means I suck at everything. So I just can see.
We know that's not true.
I'm definitely not a master at any of them. So I just hire better people.
So what's in the pipeline? What are the things to look forward to? I mean, we know the Swamp restaurant,
Swamp's a big one,
is there anything else?
I don't know. What else you want to do?
I mean, we've toyed around with some conventional property ideas. Student housing is getting to be crazy overbuilt, so I don't know what the outcome will be in that market. I don't know if people are just going to bail on locations further away from campus no matter what they do with price, or if there's a price they'll go there. I mean, this year it seems like there's no price they can go as low to get people to move, and there's a point where you're too low and they're not going to move because of that, because they're scared. So we've had a couple student housing projects that we've designed, and we just put them on hold. See what happens with all these new units coming on, because there's no more enrollment coming. UF's striving to be in the top 5, and that's counter to enrollment increases. They need to reduce enrollment, and so that's what's been happening over the last probably 5-6 years, as enrollment's been going down.
So we're pushing the commercial side more. Innovation District, trying to get that, obviously the food park, but also fill the buildings that are there. We've been renovating a bunch of existing ones, looking at building another one. So trying to really push that urban research park right next to UF.
And we got a cool building started to design for downtown for conventional property, couple actually. So, see if that flies. Conventional, we thought was going to be overbuilt, but I've been watching the numbers, and their lease up's going great. So people are just flocking to Florida and apparently Gainesville too. So, which is great.
That's great. Sometimes it concerns me. I'm like, please, I love my state. I start to get worried sometimes about, but. Yeah, well, I'll just stop it there.
Yeah, probably good.
Probably good. So one thing I love to ask entrepreneurs that have been doing business for a long time is like what was that failure that just absolutely defined, or has contributed to your success, right? Is there just a failure that just really sticks out that you're like, man, because of that moment, I'm definitely where I'm at today?
I think mine was the flood, man.
The flood?
Really,
the disaster was.
It really was, because we were looking at, can we do this in Tallahassee? Can we go to Athens? Can we go to these different places? And spending 4 months there and and living there and not being able to be home and be at the company was just. I mean, we did it. It's because of what we needed to do. But for me, I grew up in the Navy, so my dad was in the Navy for 24 years. So we moved, as you can imagine, not as much as most Navy people did, but we did move a lot. And I just didn't want to move anymore. And it really came down to, I don't even want to go to Tallahassee, and it's only 2 hours away. I really just want to be here in Gainesville, and I like being. I mean, everything we own, or most everything we own, is within walking distance from each other. So I like that, right? And I like to be able to. I mean, I'm missing baseball tonight with my youngest, but I'm gonna go home and kiss all of them good night. So, and I like that. It's just that's important to me, to be able to do that. So it just isn't worth. And could we go to Tallahassee and Athens and be successful? Yeah, but at what price? It's not for me. It's not a numbers gig. And some people it is, nothing wrong with that. For us, it's the challenge and the cool projects and the doing something a little different. And that's kind of what gets the juices flowing. When we stop doing that, I'm going fishing with him all the time. It's just,
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's crazy because, even when I reflect back to when I started this business, like I would have told you we'd have scooter dealerships all across the country.
Yeah.
And then, get married and have kids. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to be traveling all over the country. Yeah. That's the last thing.
Your priorities change, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just the way it works. So for some, it did for me. So that's my big, I think that one was my big defining.
Yeah, mine's probably a little more personal. I haven't had any tremendous business failures. I've been lucky, and then knock on wood real quick here. But when I was in high school, my first year, my parents, my mom and stepfather moved to Fort Myers, and they gave me the choice whether to stay and live in Northern Virginia with my dad or move down there, and I stayed. And my dad was not a disciplinarian, and he didn't keep a whole lot of tabs on me, and I just never went to school for my whole semester of first year of my freshman year of high school. So I got lucky and realized that was a bad move, and decided to move down to Fort Myers with my mom and stepfather. And that was probably the biggest failure, was that freshman year. Not just making a bad choice, not necessarily a bad choice, but making bad choices after I made my choice. And I learned a lot from that. And then I was going to have school. My parents were in real estate too, and my stepfather was a developer and sold some property and had made a good amount of money. And he found a way to lose it all. And so what went from, hey, your school's paid for, to in 2 years it was like, hey, we ain't got no money. And that's part of our story. Yeah. So, I did a year at Edison Community College in Fort Myers, and then moved to Gainesville and did a year at Santa Fe. Met this guy, and then we started making good money while we were in school. So and then we had to have that work ethic to pay our way through school. Again, I can't call that a failure, but my stepfather's failure in managing money was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me, I was a spoiled kid. I didn't have to work. I got an allowance. I got a car. I got everything, to you don't have anything. And if you want to go to school, you're going to have to pay for it yourself. And that helped me tremendously.
Yeah, that's huge. That's impactful. I love it. This has been a lot of fun, guys.
Yeah, thank you. It has been.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of various aspects there. We dove into a bunch of different things, and I'm excited to see what continues to develop in that corridor over there.
Come down.
I'm excited for the Swamp Restaurant. I'm excited for a lot of things. So
me too. I can only imagine what that's going to look like the first game day. So.
Yeah, that'll be insane. One of the things that I like to ask our guests, we used to ask this in a side segment, but I started bringing it into the episode, was like, if our show could connect you to one person, like who would that be? Is there anybody you've out there in the world, or you're like, man, I would love to meet that person? Because I guarantee they listen to this.
To meet, like new?
Yeah, to meet.
To meet somebody new.
Because I guarantee they're a big fan of our show. So.
Oh, I'm sure they are. Who is it that I don't know? I don't know. Who would it be?
That's tough.
You got me, man.
Yeah, you probably need to hit us with that earlier.
I've been up since 4, so you gotta.
Anybody who wants to lease one of their apartments, that's who they would like to meet.
Yeah, exactly. Any CEO out there looking for space. So.
There you go, CEO looking for space.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
I guess probably for me, gosh, we live in a different era, right? And social media, I guess Gary Vaynerchuk would be somebody that I'd love to have 10 minutes of his time just to shoot the shit.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that you can easily shoot the shit with. 10 minutes will go by in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I like this. So kind of in the same vein, when I was in New York a few years ago, we saw Charles Barkley. in one of the bars, and my wife didn't know who that was, and he had his back kind of turned. He's kind of side sitting, and he's talking to these two young ladies. Turns out one of them is his daughter. And this other guy, and he's cussing up a storm, and my wife's like, this kind of cussing right here in the bar, loud, and I look over, I'm like, that's Charles Barkley. I'm like, sweetie, that's Charles Barkley. She's like, I don't care, he's cussing a lot. I'm like, he's kind of known for that. He's kind of known for being out there and kind of just telling it like it is. And I think I'd like to hang with him for a little while. Just he's just one of those guys that just
Would your wife like to?
Like it. No, definitely not.
Oh, man.
On that same vein, just kind of just throw it out there.
Well, where can our audience connect with you? I mean, if they wanted to find all the various properties, I guess it's just trimarkproperties.com.
Yeah.
And that's the social media handles too?
That is.
Can I get confirmation from Sarah?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in tonight. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to everybody who's listening. And thank you to James Leitner, who does the editing on our show, Sarah Lance, and today's special video fill-in, Jason Prince and Moss Chastain. Is that right? Did I say it right? Moss.
Jason Price.
That's what I said. Jason Price? I say what I say, Prince.
I think he said Prince.
You guys, that's why I'm trying to give credit to Short Media Group, who came in and really helped us out tonight. Thank you guys so much for doing that, by the way.
Thank you.
Jason Price. I said Prince. Well, Jason and Moss, thank you so much for coming in. Podcast fam, if you didn't have a chance to write down the information of the incredible sponsors that make this show possible, don't worry. You can find all that information at whoagnv.com/sponsors, or simply click the links in the show notes and it'll get you right over there. And special love this episode to our friends at the UF Mover Guys. These guys have 50 team members and 8 trucks ready to help you move in Gainesville between some of these properties over at Trimark. They will help you guys out. The UF Mover Guys provides full service moving services and even have climate controlled storage. They provide loading and unloading services onto rented trucks, shipping containers, and pods. Whether you are moving out of town or moving into town, last minute moves are not a problem. These guys are available 7 days a week. They've been serving the area for years. They don't charge travel or fuel fees on local moves, and no move is too big or too small. Give our friends Brad and Jordan at UF Mover Guys a call when you're preparing your next move. Call them at 352-415-0886 and visit them at ufmoverguys.com. And when you do, be sure to say, I heard you on the WHOA GNV podcast. The podcast bring you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. We will see you later.